end of that holiday, on the last day, I learned that my father had passed away. And I was like, oh, life is short, what is life about, actually? Let me make sure that before I die, I have achieved the things that I've set out to achieve.
Welcome to The Freedom Project, a podcast for those who crave adventure with every fibre of their body. I'm on a mission to bring you absolute freedom. Yes, freedom to do what you want when you want to, but also freedom from your own limitations. In this podcast, I'm going to be exploring what it takes to live a life full of adventure and freedom. I'll be interviewing adventurers, explorers, and business owners who have set their life up to have an abundance of choice. And I'm also going to give you the high performance tips and tricks I teach my adventurepreneur clients to have the kind of life they want and be the type of person they wish they were. So if you're not already, subscribe to the show and settle in for another episode of The Freedom Project. The death of a parent and a friend pointing out that you need to get a life. You wouldn't elect for either of these two things if you had the choice. But these two things proved to be turning points in Stella Kamba's life. She lived in the corporate world and was excellent at it, but something nagged at her to do something more aligned with her true self. That thing was to start More Life Adventures, a business providing adventurous fitness holidays for busy people. Stella has been on a massive journey on transformation, and in this conversation, Stella and I discuss the details of her growth as that person and becoming that person, the obstacles she has faced in her journey and how she overcame them, what it's like to take that big step into entrepreneurship, how her mindset has shifted along the way, and much more. It's been such a privilege to work with Stella on just a small part of her journey. My hope is that you too can use this episode as a jumping off point to move to your next level as an adventurepreneur or just performance and seeking freedom in your life. If you're interested in leveling up as an adventurepreneur, I offer a handful of free adventurepreneur assessments each month where we can discuss what your next level looks like and how to attain that. We'll put together a pathway, a plan. To see if you qualify for a free adventurepreneur assessment, head to my Instagram profile, Tom Foxley, and send me the word adventurepreneur. But let's get on with the show. The conversation that you had with a friend when they said, you need some more life. Tell me about that.
Yeah. And you're the first person I think you're maybe the second, in total, I've said this to 2 or 3 people in my life because it's so embarrassing. And everyone is like, tell us how More Life Adventure started. And there's a lot of things that that happened, but one of them was that I was in a dinner with friends, and you're all sharing how you're doing and what you're up to. And I don't know what I shared, but this very well-meaning friend said to me, sort of paused and said to me, Stella, I really wish that you will have more life. And her English wasn't British English, but what she wanted to say was, you have no life. And she said something like, I want you to have more things in your life. And I was like, damn, that really stung. And it stung more because it was from a well-meaning friend that had no intention of, making me feel bad or offending me or, inflating her ego, none of that stuff. She just kind of very honestly and frankly gave me her impression of my life at that time. And it's because I was basically working and I didn't even have a reason to be working that hard because it wasn't like my own gig. It wasn't my own business. It was just a job that was paying the bills and was fairly comfortable. And it didn't seem like I had anything else going on that was like really lighting a fire in my soul. And I think maybe it was that made her question how I was living. And because if I had gone and said, you'll never believe, I achieved this and that at work, she might have had a different appraisal. But whatever she meant at that time, which I didn't question, I went home thinking, man, that's going to sting for a long time. That's one of those things that I have no way out. I have no immediate answer to it. And it seems like I'm trapped in this zone of comfort and safety. And I'm really trapped in it. Like my life is about safety and survival in this place. And I've not made it any bigger. Like I'm surviving, I'm managing, I'm comfortable, you know, I have food on the table and I clearly have friends to spend time with. But is that all? I think that's what she meant. Like, what's your life about? So, you know, this was now well over 10 years ago, but at the time it was that. Plus I read a book called The Charge, and it was talking about that zone of safety. And I was like, man, yeah, we've got to do something.
What was the story that you're telling yourself that was keeping you on the kind of societally accepted straight and narrow?
I think it was what I wasn't telling myself, that all the conditioning up to that point had been seek the approval of society, and you know, I knew what was the right thing to do, maybe, and was still, have I actually achieved that? And if not, then I better work harder to get the approval, or I think there was also a failure to get things wrong, you know, because there was a fear of making mistakes, and that was probably a really big fear. You know, you must, at each stage of life, you must be succeeding or checking a box. No matter what it took to check that box, you have to check it. And no matter how long it takes to check that box, you have to check it. So, you know, I wasn't really asking myself, I wasn't giving myself a lot of freedom to do things I enjoy. Or if I was doing it, I was sort of trying to justify it with something. So it wasn't like I was giving myself a ton of time to think, hey, what am I really good at? What do I actually love? Could I actually do that as a job? And I eventually got there, but it took a long time.
Yeah, so what sequence of events did that conversation and that book and that kind of moment in your life unlock?
Yeah. So obviously you only know, like, you can only make sense of life in hindsight, right? So at uni stage, I had a mood board, which I was quite a clever kid, and I sort of had like a mood board containing sort of images of athletic people, specifically women. Like, this is who I wanted to be. And at uni, I was sort of not very athletic at all. Like, I'd never been athletic at school. I was very socially athletic. Like, if it was social, I was going to be in it. But I didn't have a sport or anything that I could set goals against. But at uni, I had a mood board that involved business and fitness. And it was so far-fetched because I was doing architecture. It had nothing to do with fitness or business. And in fourth year, but sort of to manage my stress at uni, I joined a gym. And that was the first time I'd paid to join a gym. And I joined all the classes and was sort of there a lot. And I was very inspired by that place. It was a very interesting design. And in fourth year, I designed a gym in my architecture course. And I did research in all the kinds of social clubs and members clubs that were in London. I just loved that year. It was the first year that I was actually, even though for the previous 3 years in architecture, the tutors had tried to drill into me that I should be working from passion. I should be bringing my interests to the table, and I should be doing projects that I, you know, had an opinion about, and so on. It took a long time for me to get there. So, but in fourth year, I did this project where, you know, I designed the gym of my dreams, and I did a lot of research into members clubs. And I think those were like, even though at the time I didn't really realize, those were things I was really passionate about, community and fitness. And then in fifth year, I sort of was like, oh, I've got to get this like piece of paper that says, you know, I'm an architect now. So I put a few things on the back burner. Things that And then I sort of went on and got an architecture job and sort of forgot a little bit what I wanted life to be about, or what really set my heart on fire. But long story short, I think a few things that helped was I joined a church, and they were very hot on community and community events. And I ended up hosting a regular gathering at my place every Friday, I think it was. And that's where that friend told me, you have no life. And then that changed churches, and the second one actually had a very a fitness club of sorts that members had put together, where it was every Wednesday night we'd get together in the basement of their offices, and we'd clear the tables and we'd do a circuit. And we'd take turns to plan the circuit. And one week, this guy turned up, planned the circuit, and it took 16 minutes, and I was dead. Like, I was so dead. And I was like, what was that? And it turned out it was CrossFit. And at the time, I knew, what a marathon was, but I didn't know what CrossFit was. But I knew CrossFit hurt more than the marathon at the time. And that got me into a CrossFit gym. And then fitness and community kind of collided in that place. And then long after that, I went on a fitness holiday with a CrossFit gym, and I had an amazing time. And on the end of that holiday, on the last day, I learned that my father had passed away. And I was like, oh, life is short, what is life about, actually? Let me make sure that before I die, I have achieved the things that I've set out to achieve. And one of those things was to have enough time for fitness and friends, and make life in the city bearable. Like, I had burnt out in the city at my previous job so many times. And even in jobs that I loved, I would still find myself having really low moments of sort of burnout. And I thought that it's important in life to have a rhythm of breaks and downtime, so that you can go hard and not burn out. And I think that I never learned that in my life. No one really drilled it into me. We didn't have a lot of routines when I was a kid, and I never really learned rhythm. So I was all about going hard, or as hard as I could, but I didn't know how to actually chill. So at that time, I was a personal trainer. I'd quit architecture long ago, and I'd worked for a charity, and then I'd become a personal trainer. And I knew firsthand that I had clients who were also going really, really hard and didn't get enough quality recovery time. And I thought, right, well, there's no point spending your whole life working to then not recover properly. And I also had clients who, were putting in a lot of time in the gym and deserved the time off to recover, for their body to realize the gains. So I thought, I want to spend some more time by the sea. I have this house in Crete. I'm going to make it so that I can bring people out there and we can do fitness by the sea. And I registered the domain fitnessbythesea.com or something. And then there was a trademark issue, where this other lady in Portsmouth or somewhere on the south coast of England had registered the same name. And I thought, do you know what? Let her have it. She was there before me. She still hasn't set up the business, but I don't know. I'm happy for you to have it. Mm-hmm. So I backed out of that business name, and I hired some space at the WeWork around the corner, and just got, in my spare time between clients, I worked on a business idea, and started out in Crete at that house, the family summer house. And we put a rig in the sort of yard of the house where there was nothing happening. It was a summer house. My dad, bless him, was never a big fan of Crete. and he had another house that he would go to, and he was always saying, let's sell that Crete house. Like, we never go there. And when he died, I thought, I don't know, something in me thought, we need to make use of that place. And also it's my mom's, and maybe my mom wants to get involved. I don't know. And she did, bless her. She poured the concrete slab for the rig to go on. And I don't know. I thought, I need to do something with that place. We have it. We're never going to sell it. So essentially I asked my clients, do you want to go and have a fitness holiday? And like, not many replied, because, it was a specific date of a specific month and of the year. And I thought, well, if my clients can't all go together on the same week, should I open it to other people? And so I did. And, that summer of 2019, we got a few groups out there. So that's how it started. Long story short.
Fantastic. What did that feel like, that initial setup phase?
Exciting, I think. I think whenever you have a lot of freedom, whenever you give yourself a lot of freedom, it feels exciting. And when you're trying something new, I'm very motivated by new ideas that I think have a reason behind them. I think with architecture, you are always, at least where I studied, you were always incentivized to create something original that didn't exist before. Obviously, there's no original idea as such. Everything draws on previous ideas. And I'd been to summer camp so many years in childhood and as a teenager, and that's the time of the year I loved the most. And so I felt like I was recreating that summer camp feeling where people can come and it's going to be exciting and we're going to play.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So it felt exciting at the time. Did I'm guessing it felt aligned as well. It sounds like, knowing you now and having worked with you for so long, it sounds way more you, like authentic, aligned, congruent than personal training as well, because it has that sense of adventure, but also architecture.
Yeah, I don't know where architecture fits really, but it definitely taught me to be creative, or that there's merit in being creative, because I think otherwise I might have been too swayed by other people's ideas. And it definitely drills in you that there are ideas in you that you should pursue. Yeah.
What was the initial goal for you?
I think it was to create events, because I had seen firsthand the power of events in bringing people together. And it was to create a very unique event, a very unique experience. I think there is so much power in getting people together for something, and for something that makes their life richer, for something that they can take home and they feel energized and empowered and connected. I feel like, I'd been through, I haven't told you, but there were so many burnout moments in the city by me trying so hard to be sort of good at work and a responsible citizen and whatever else. That I forgot where I was going with it, but I feel like there was a need to recharge, essentially, and I wanted to create that recharging experience and a space where people can just be themselves.
It's really interesting you spoke about that kind of facade you created, because it seems to be in every podcast I'm recording at the moment, but also most conversations, this persona that we create that fulfills a function and it serves us, but it isn't aligned with who we really are, and it feels very uncertain to drop that persona, and it feels like a risk, but it also feels like our personal truth that we should do.
Yeah, but I won't completely knock the corporate life, because it definitely taught me, just being inside someone else's business is super valuable time. And I think there's a reason why I stayed in there for 10 years in the corporate world, that there were things that I was learning that I wouldn't learn anywhere else, like delivering a project as a team, for example, and just that culture of making it happen and learning from other people. I was an immigrant, expat, whatever you want to call it. I'm not from England. So at the age of 17, 18, I left Greece, and coming into another society, there's so much to learn. And I value my time in corporate architecture, let's say. And then I valued my time in the 2 years working for the church as well, because I haven't spoken about that. I don't know how people feel about me talking about the church, because it wasn't a traditional church at all. It was a super clever charity, let's say, funded by some very clever city people, that just wants to spread like what they see as the truth, essentially. But they do some really, really good events, and they're very good at getting people together. And I felt that there was power there. And so I learned the whole business of events and getting people together. I learned the basics there. I forgot your original question.
So it wasn't really a question anyway. It was about persona and dropping.
Yeah. I was fake. I was my 20s. If you'd met me in my 20s, I don't know if you would have liked me. Like, wasn't very real. I wasn't very vulnerable with people. And there was a switch. And I think it was a guy I met in architecture, actually, in my architecture job, where we were like peers almost. We were talking a lot, and he was super clear and blunt and honest about where he was at. And I thought, that's fantastic. That's who I want to be as well. And I think it was just coming across the same hurdle over and over and over, that I wasn't asking for help. Like, I was getting stuck at that point of like, well, I don't really want to ask for help. I don't want to admit that I'm struggling. I think it will put people off, or it will scare people, or my ego will, I don't know what it was actually. I think if I could go back to my 20s, I think maybe just that I was scared that I'd disappoint people. If I really admitted how much I struggled, maybe I would also disappoint my parents. So I never told my parents. It's that feeling of like, well, people expect me to be a certain person that's got it together.
If you're an adventurepreneur and you want more freedom to do more cool shit, then I want to help you do that. Every month, I take on a maximum of 3 new clients into my high-performance adventurepreneur program. This is a completely bespoke, personal, and deep dive program giving you complete freedom, teaching you high-performance mastery. It's application and invite only, and I accept only those who are the best fit for the program. To apply for your space, head to my Instagram, Tom Foxley, Foxley, and send me a message with the word interested.
Basically.
It's so funny that so many of us have that story, and it's obviously not just you who has that story. Almost every client that I speak to has a version of that, of not asking for help, but also the image that we portray to others, and the kind of persona again that we want to project to someone who's got their shit together, as someone who really knows what they're doing and is unflappable. But that's what keeps us stagnated, and it's like that you kind of get trapped in a suit of armor, and you want to grow, but you're the snake that has to shed its skin, and that becomes restrictive. And to do that, you've got to be vulnerable again.
Yeah, and that was one of the, and of course, it doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah, absolutely. What have been the challenges along the way of starting More Life Adventures? Like, how they, obviously the initial stage is very exciting, and then it becomes a business, and then that has a whole kind of a whole lot of things associated with it. So what challenges have you faced along the way?
I think there's more challenge than success, I guess. But I think through the challenge is what makes you grow. So the first challenge was, I started in 2019 and then COVID hit like a few months later. So that was interesting timing. And so that was sort of a blessing and a curse, because on one hand, we had that limbo time to figure things out, experiment with online events, and kind of not have a lot of expectation put on us. On the other hand, it was so stressful not knowing when you can put on the next event and what you can put on, because the rules were changing every few months or every few weeks. And I had so many plans for that summer 2020. 2019 had obviously happened. It was so exciting. And we were like, well, it can only grow in 2020. And of course, in March, everything stops. So I used to get the worst headaches during the lockdown, from unexpressed anxiety. Like, that was the first challenge. Like how I said to you before, I didn't really want to ask for help. I didn't even want to admit how I was feeling or ask for help in that respect, or I didn't think people would understand. And because I didn't express it, I just kept getting headaches, migraines, like 3-day migraines with vomiting, all kinds of things. So learning to be honest about my anxiety was one thing. Getting the right team together, or realizing who you need to be on your team, and projecting forward, what am I going to need in 6 months from now, in a year from now. And I think probably one of the biggest ones was that I didn't set out with this big 5-year plan of, I want it to look like that. I thought this will be a good side sort of offering to my PT business. And it wasn't anything bigger than that. And then suddenly it was like, over the course of 2 years in the lockdown, I came to the conclusion that, well, it's sort of, I've put in so much work into it now, I might as well make it a full-time thing. Or I took the risk of, well, maybe it is a way for me to not be, as a PT, you are a one-man, one-woman, one-man business. And I was quite an old PT that was just starting out, in my late 30s. And everyone around me was a lot younger. And I felt the need to be more than a one-man band. And the only way I was going to do that would be to work with other people, to have a team. And so I thought, wouldn't it be great to work with other coaches who have a lot more experience than me, and having a team of events would make that possible. So that was something that was a draw. But of course, I'd have to give up my clients, and I really liked having my own clients and having that one-on-one relationship where you're helping them towards their goals and they come to you with problems, and it's super rewarding. Like, as a job, I can't think of anything better. So being a coach is like such an amazing job. I'm sure you agree there.
I do.
But yet at the same time, having a business is like is rewarding on a different level. So not setting out with this big 5-year plan was an issue, because I didn't really have an idea of what it would look like in 5 years, for example, what I would need to do. And now I think it's really important to look into the future.
Yeah, because you're so mobile at the beginning, and you don't know anything right at the beginning. You don't know what better looks like, and you've got to try a load of things and break things and kind of really hone that direction. You've kind of got a vague idea, but you can only see with perspective when you've kind of got up that hill a little bit, and you can go, okay, that is roughly what I think, that's the direction I want to go in. Yeah.
To be honest, it was, in the beginning, it was like, well, I'm going to help clients and friends go to Crete once a year or 2-3 times a year. And then it became if we're going to Crete, could we go, if we have a business that takes people to Crete, can we take them somewhere else? And going from, well, I'm going to organize everything and also have a PT business, to actually to organize something like that professionally. If I want to make more of it, then I need a team. And then well, if I have a team and I'm paying them a salary, then we need more events to make more money to pay the team. So then we need to have events. So sort of fast forward, we need to have events throughout the year. And then what kind of team do we need? And what else do we need to do in order to draw people closer to those events, which are quite expensive? You know, if you're going to spend a couple of $1,000 on a holiday with us, then how will you get to that point of wanting to spend a couple of $1,000? Like, you need to trust us, and you can only trust us by either meeting us or hearing about us. And we need to put the word out there. So then we need some more marketing time. That was the sort of.
How have you grown as a person in that time? Like, because you're not the same person now as you were when you said someone needed, or someone told you needed some more life. Like, you've grown. Like, how have you done that? And not only how have you done that, but how have you changed?
With mindset help from Tom Foxley.
Correct. You hit the open goal there.
Everyone. Yeah, no, it's true.
So
in
like,
the lockdown,
what changes have you seen?
Age. I've aged. No, I'm joking. I think I'm more outgoing, funnily enough. Like, I think maybe I had a phase as a kid and a teenager where I was very extroverted. And then in my 20s, I became quite an introvert and quite resistant to socializing and partying. And I think I've become more extroverted in a way. As in, I still have a need for private time and reflection, but I enjoy meeting people more. I
and
enjoy.
What benefit has that given you?
So, like I mentioned, I didn't like sharing my struggles, but I think I'm way more interested in coming together and sharing struggles now, because we've had to do. I think the lockdown really shifted some things in my head where there were a lot of fora, however you call it, where you were encouraged to come together and share what's going on. And of course, everyone was sharing that they were going through hard times, and they had crisis of confidence, and they didn't know what was coming. And I had my anxiety, migraines, and it just became more the norm to express what was really going on. And for me, I think maybe not, it wasn't the first time, but it was a time when it was encouraged. And so I realized that people want to help if you give them the opportunity. And so the world has become a lot more accessible. I think the world has become a lot friendlier in my eyes. And I'm not trying to prove anything anymore like I was in my 20s. Like in my 20s, it was, proving myself was the thing. Can I do this? Can I do that? It's like, I think I got into marathon running because of that. I just wanted to prove, like, there's no need for me to do marathons. I don't know where we started. What was the question?
It's all good. Like, how have you grown as a human in that time, and what changes have you seen within yourself?
I've done a lot of mindset work. Before I met you, I was doing some stuff with Brendan Bouchard's company called growth.com. And I think it was like 10 weeks at a time of one weekly check-ins, and then some coursework material that I had to go through. I knew that I was someone who just wasn't going to go anywhere if I didn't do some serious mindset work, because I didn't have confidence. I didn't know how to pitch ideas, even though I'd been in architecture school and all you did was pitch ideas. I was just quite scared of failing. And I knew that the possibilities were, because I really wanted to make my passion my job. And to get there, I could see that there were going to be some struggles along the way. Yeah. I grew up, so in my 20s, maybe late 20s, early 30s, was a time when people were sharing on Instagram that, I've been remote working, I've been traveling, I've been doing this and that. And I was like, how do people do that? Like, how do you actually live a lifestyle that is aligned with what you like, what you enjoy doing, who you are as a person? How do you ditch the expectations that you've put on yourself that you need to meet? And I think my poor father dying, I sort of thought to myself, he would love to have seen me happier or more happy or more fulfilled or more accomplished. And he always used to say, you have a lot that you should be confident about, and I don't see you being so confident about them. So, in hindsight, you think like, you remember more the things that they've told you when they go away.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a huge change you've been through. How would you, if someone was thinking about, okay, I want to go on a similar path, what perspectives or tools would you give them to help them live this, or help them move towards the type of person that they want to be?
How long have you got? Please say the question again.
Yeah, like you've been in this game of personal development and of seeking what I would call the adventurepreneur lifestyle, freedom, trips, living in alignment with who you are. You've been doing this for a fair amount of time now, and you've learned a lot and grown a lot as a person. What lessons would you pass on to people who want to go on a similar journey?
Yeah, I think evaluate priorities. Like, you can't have everything at any one time. You've got to give some to get some. So, to put it really simply, like, what can you afford to lose? Money-wise and lifestyle-wise. Like, if you really want to pursue something, can you give up the flat in London? Can you put it up for rent? Or you've got to make some sacrifices, but you have to know why. So, like, prioritize what the top priority is and then go after that and be willing to sacrifice other stuff. And I've put a lot of money into my More Life adventures. Like, I have decided that this is, if I die in like a year or 2 years, I want to leave something behind. I want to have created something that I'm proud of. And I've decided it's worth investing in. So I think being flexible about anything that isn't a priority is important, and just being okay with that. And I think the first thing is, I had a sort of, when I was an architect, I would go to parties and say I'm an architect, and people would go, oh, that's so interesting. Then I was nothing. I was unemployed, and I would go to parties and say I'm unemployed. And like, you've got to be okay with your identity changing a little bit, like, or your identity not being your sort of CV. And I think there's freedom in that. Like, even before other people tell you that your life has freedom, you've got to be free yourself from the expectations that other people have put on you, or you think they have put on you. Sometimes they haven't even put them on you. You've just worn them for no reason. I think, again, like, even sometimes other things, like, how athletic do I need to be, like, or how rich do I need to be, or how, what's the ceiling? I think it's important knowing what the ceiling is, and order of priorities is the first one, and then freedom from other people's expectations is the other one, which sometimes they haven't even verbalized. You've just assumed that other people have expectations of you.
Yeah, absolutely. Along the path of business development, you must have got very clear on the people who want to come and go on trips with you and go on adventures with you.
Yeah.
Who, part of that is market research, but part of them is seeing them time and time again. Like, who comes on these trips?
Busy people who like to train and don't have time to plan an a holiday with a lot of activities. And so they give us the money to plan something that will be really exciting. And then they come along and they sort of, the decision making stops. They don't have to make any decisions. We've made all the decisions for them. We even know what meals they want, and they can just enjoy themselves. And I say busy people because the people that need the holidays the most, the people that work really hard, and sometimes they have the money to do the holiday, but they don't have the time to even think about it.
And the bandwidth to deal with the what's the word? With the decisions.
Yeah, exactly. And frankly, like, I'm not interested in, are there more important things to do at the time than sort of get together with, activity operators or coaches and sort all that out. It's a full-time job. So, yeah. I think, the premise of More Life Adventures was to give people quality downtime, quality recovery time. And for that is a full-time job. Like, to plan your downtime so that it's fruitful and productive, that's another job. So nobody has time to do it. You have time for your own job. Quality downtime means that you go for that downtime and you are being educated, you're being stimulated. I'm not saying there's no what's the word? There's no merit in being bored. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying if you want to have a stimulating camp or fitness holiday or retreat, that takes planning. So, yeah.
Absolutely. What trips do you have coming up?
We have a trip to Cape Town in March, and we have a trip to Madeira in April.
Nice. Sounds incredible. Like, tell me about this.
Yeah. So Cape Town is all the destinations we go to have opportunities for activity indoors and outdoors. And we pick them for that reason. And we pick places that have mountain and sea so that you can both be in the sea and be on the mountain in the same week. And also usually a really good CrossFit gym as well, where we know that we'll be welcome. It's fair to say that I started inviting people from my CrossFit gym, and we have kind of grown that way from word of mouth. And so there's a bit of a CrossFit element involved, but the places we've been to so far, the coaches have been really, really nice with beginners and brought them in. As you know, CrossFit is infinitely scalable. My grandma would have done it. But at the same time, we want to do the hikes. We want to do the swimming. We want to do the paddle boarding. So we try and bring all of that to every destination.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And then where can people find out more about it if they're interested?
morelifeadventures.com. More Life Adventures on Instagram. And you can contact me personally at stella.kamba on Instagram.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. Is there anything else you wanted to say before we wrap up?
I wanted to say that your course during the lockdown really saved my ass. You had this group mindset calls and group mindset work that I was encouraged to write. I knew how to journal, but I was encouraged to write more than before. And since then, we've done quite a lot of work together that has really helped keep me on the straight and narrow.
Well, I'm so glad I could facilitate that for you. And it's been such a pleasure to get to know you properly and to witness your growth, because it seems like every time we have a check-in call, but also if you look periodically at kind of a quarterly basis, your consistent growth towards alignment and towards this more adventurepreneur life is like, it's so evident.
Thank you. It's nice to be in with people that get it and who are on the same path. Like, I look up to you, and you inspire me, and hopefully I inspire you a bit. And so.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely do. So I think that's a perfect place to wrap up. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you.